Welcome to Beyond the Smile. I'm your host, Dr. Layla Haishaw, founder and CEO of the nonprofit Diversity in Dentistry Mentorships Incorporated. In this podcast, our Huddle, we bring together successful dentists of color to encourage, empower, and educate our mentees to be competitive candidates to successfully get in, get through, and thrive beyond dental school. Are you ready to be inspired into action? Then you're in the right place. Let's huddle up. The inaugural season of the Beyond the Smile podcast has been brought to you by our sponsor and partner, the Benco Dental Family Foundation, the philanthropic division of the Benco Dental Company. Isaiah Sampson is a current fourth-year dental student at UCLA School of Dentistry from Tacoma, Washington. He completed his undergraduate studies at Arizona State University, majoring in microbiology and minoring in music. After graduation, Isaiah will be attending an orthodontic residency program at the University of Michigan. Let's join the huddle. I am your host, Dr. Layla Haishaw. Yes, the founder of Diversity in Dentistry Mentorships. We are here with Isaiah Sampson, who is a dental student about to graduate from UCLA School of Dentistry and has been just recently got his acceptance to the orthodontic residency at University of Michigan. And as I was saying before the feedback came on, our nonprofit is here to strengthen the diversity pathway from middle school to dental school. We are wanting to create a diverse, equitable applicant pool. So dental schools have no excuse to have a wonderful selection of strong candidates from diverse backgrounds, so then that we can increase the diversity of the dental workforce and increase access to care, and of course, improve oral health outcomes for all communities. So with our podcast, what we wanted to do is just kind of continue what we started out with. I want to say a great special thank you to Dr. Jared Williams, one of our board officers who had our group accountability calls for many, many months and seasons, where we got together our mentees and we talked about things that mentees wanted to know about: study prep, leadership development, skills, and everything they could do as far as getting, improving their interviewing skills, getting shadowing hours and all that. So now we're just continuing this as with our podcast, Beyond the Smile, because there's so much that we have to offer as dentists of color beyond dentistry. And this is what we're going to find out from inspiring, encouraging stories from current dental students and dentists of color. So with that, thank you, Isaiah, for joining us. I have to do just a quick little reminiscing that when I started Diversity Dentistry back in 2018, it was just a Facebook group page, and it didn't become a nonprofit until a couple of years ago. And I saw your post about you getting into UCLA, and we have that Arizona connection. I know you're not from Arizona, but you graduated from Arizona State, and I'm here in Tucson, Arizona. So just to see your trajectory and your path and your success, I'm just like a proud mama mentor. It's for you to be our first guest on Beyond the Smile. So I will turn it to you. Will you please introduce yourself, a little background for everyone here?
So hey everybody, my name is Isaiah. Like Dr. Haishaw said earlier, fourth-year dental student at UCLA. From Tacoma, Washington, grew up and then lived all over the place, and then went to Arizona State University for undergrad, majored in microbiology, minored in music. And then now just had the match. And so the whole long process of getting into residency is over. Super excited to start my orthodontic training at University of Michigan.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. Now you might want to tell the audience how difficult it is to match in an orthodontic residency.
Yeah, the process, it takes a lot, to say the very least. It takes a lot. There's I usually don't like to operate off of like a checklist basis of things, but it seems like of what they expect from candidates. There's just such a long laundry list of things that orthodontic residencies expect from candidates, from like grades to their GRE score to their like research, leadership, volunteering, orthodontic exposure, a whole bunch of different things that you kind of have to make sure that you're exposing yourself to and growing as a practitioner while in dental school. And so it can make that path really, really strenuous. But it's something that just takes a lot of organization. And luckily, I went to a school that doesn't have grades, so I was allowed to put a lot of the energy I had into things that I was more so passionate about, and then also the other things that I had to build myself as an applicant. But the process is very, very difficult for a lot of people. So really glad to be able to have the opportunity to go to any residency, let alone the dream of going to Michigan, which is awesome.
Fantastic. I mean, so selective. So, I mean, of course, I do want us to touch on that, the grading system and how that's different at UCLA, and get some more insight on if that's kind of the model that we're seeing in dental schools, which I think is great. But let's go back from the beginning. Like, why dentistry? What made you decide to go into dentistry, and then a little bit of how you prepare to successfully get in.
Yeah, so for dental school, I've always been like a really big science nerd ever since I was super young. I remember having like a science encyclopedia, and I would just be like on my stomach flipping through the pages when I was younger. So I always had like a weird, like random fascination with things related to science. Then going through my education, like K through 12, and then ending out of high school, I realized that I had an affinity for like things related to microbiology. And so I was like, okay, this is really cool. I have a very specific area of science that I like. And then my mom started to develop some dental issues, and then seeing how that like really personally affected her, gave like a super big visceral feeling of how important this aspect of healthcare can be. And being I loved science, I was looking towards healthcare in the first place. And so having these two things connect together was something that made it apparent that dentistry was something that I wanted to pursue. And then going through undergrad, it was just something that kind of solidified that, being able to look at different aspects of healthcare and being able to see what parts of dentistry really resonated with me. And so going through that process of undergrad, there was trying to make sure that you have all of the grades that you had to do, getting the positions, and involving yourself in things that you want to on campus, but also making sure you're developing yourself in skills that would be advantageous as a healthcare practitioner that you can articulate to dental schools, and volunteering to be able to fulfill that duty as a human, as well as being able to involve yourself in the dental community. Was a lot of things that I kind of focused my time on in that first few years. And then later, within like it was about the middle of my second year, starting to do like research and things of that nature to kind of like add on to the application. And so very early, I decided I wanted to do dentistry. So I was just doing a lot of things that I thought would add skills that would be advantageous to being a good healthcare provider. And luckily, they all just kind of funneled into something that was a very digestible application that had very clear themes like teaching and teaching and community service and leadership and things of that nature. So luckily, the things that I was passionate about were able to draw a narrative to my application, but being very, very intentional in that beginning of undergrad to be able to know the things that I needed to do to be a competitive applicant were some of my main focuses. Even if it was maybe being too hard on myself, it was something that was being very focused in my energy to.
Yeah, dentists seem to be overachievers. But it's of course important to be prepared. Now, did you do a lot of just self-research, or did you have guidance through a mentor or someone in the family or within your network to help you know?
So I went into it pretty blind, doing a lot of Google, went on like SDN for better or for worse to be able to get some information of like what it takes. Yeah. And so just a lot of researching of different things that could make someone like very competitive. And a lot of the information is not really readily available. And so some of what I was using was like the model that the medical students have used in order to be competitive applicants for medical school, and kind of translated that over. Since I wasn't able to find too much information on what it takes to be a good dental school applicant, I just assumed that healthcare, there's healthcare practitioner, like you're building the skills to do that from a single standpoint of just that's the skills that it requires. So I was kind of using that as a model. And then as I grew and was able to make more connections with whether it be dental students or like Dr. Darwin and yourself, being able to figure out some of those nuances of how to navigate that, I was just kind of using that medical school applicant as a model first off. And then as the information came, I was able to fine tune the things that I was doing a little bit more.
Now, one of the quotes I always remember is success leaves crumbs. So, see who's done it, see how they did it, find it, and be resourceful too to get there. Was it challenging, or were you successful your first round of application, in first cycle to get in?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to get in on that first cycle. And I think a couple of things could have played into that. I was really, really hard on myself in terms of academics. So ensuring that I had a really high GPA. So I was always like, okay, what is the school that has, what are some of the schools with the higher GPAs? I want to try to be above that if I can be, to give myself the best chance. And then for the DAT, I've never really had the most structured instruction in how to take standardized tests. So my DAT wasn't like the huge strong score that people end up getting, but it was enough to be able to have something that's not completely negative on the application. And luckily I had a GPA that kind of made up for it, along with like the extracurricular activity. So I was lucky enough to have a good successful first cycle through the dental school process.
And you're closer to it. I've been out, 20 years. Hate to say that out loud, but it's all good. But now, I know this holistic approach to looking over the dental candidates, and it is very important, right, to have other interests and showing some involvement in extracurricular activities. So they're seeing the whole person, and you're not just narrowed in on just academics, but how are you serving the community and serving others? Right.
100%. And one of the things that I think is really unique about both my dental school and my orthodontic residency application is dental school application did not have the word dental on it. And then my CV for residency did not have the word orthodontics on it. So it was very just doing things that are related to like my passions as a human being and allowing those things to kind of.
All mentees need to hear that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And this is why I think it's so important speaking with students who are just recently graduated, about to graduate, because you're in proximity closer to someone who is going through the process, and like, don't get all caught up in there, and don't let you get in your own way of really pursuing your goals there. So
yeah, 100%.
And also one tidbit I remember when I was I went to UMKC in Kansas City, go Chiefs. And I was one of the student representatives in the admission committee. And I remember they would say if someone was coming in applying and they had their interview and they were just saying, yeah, I want to be an orthodontist, it almost kind of hurt them, because they're not saying that they want to, take care of oral disease and care for patients and know all that dentistry has to offer, kind of just coming in narrow focus. Now you might know you want to do that, but it was advised really not to say that. Do you think that's changed in the 2 decades since I've been out?
I think that remains pretty consistent. Like from what I've been hearing, like my friends who are on the admissions committee, they're saying that they want people who are like, you're going to dental school to be a dentist. So ensuring that that's something that's at the forefront of your priorities is because no one knows how dental school is going to go, especially like it's a huge challenge, a huge transition for anybody. So you wouldn't want somebody to go into dental school with thinking they wanted to do oral surgery and only like oral surgery and not like dentistry, and then end up not necessarily their path not leading them to being able to be a competitive applicant for that, and then them being stuck with something that they don't necessarily want to do, and then therefore being someone who's not contributing very positively to it. So that seems to be a pretty consistent sentiment with that, of people wanting to be a dentist first and foremost, and then if you have interests outside of that, the opportunity to explore those while you're in dental school, for sure.
Oh, okay, great. Well, we'll definitely highlight that for those getting ready to, decision day is coming up, right? And then as we go through the next cycle, when the students are going on interviews, to make sure that they keep that in mind. So orthodontics, are you thinking, I know this is a little bit ahead because kind of wanted to talk about, a lot of people choose dentistry because you can be a business owner. Is that something you're just keeping open, or have you always dreamt of having your own practice, or just kind of want to see the different models that are out there?
So that was kind of the thing that drew me to dentistry, or one of the few things that drew me to dentistry was the ability to like work for yourself and be self-sufficient in that matter. So it's always been a dream of mine to have a practice. Like when I was like coming up through dental school, I've always wanted to have like, oh, I want to have like 2 or 3 practices, and being able to like coincide that with different mentorship opportunities that I had. So private practice is one of the things that's always kind of been in my realm of goals. I know that model is kind of changing a little bit now, but it's still something that I want to do for myself.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, UCLA is great school, of course. You got Dr. Edmund Hewlett there, Associate Dean of Inclusion and Diversity.
AKA the GOAT.
Yeah, he's a GOAT, right? So honored to have him on serving on our board. Ooh, we got some mentees coming in the huddle. I'm so excited. Welcome, guys. So having him there, that's been great because I know DEI is at the forefront at UCLA. Is there any advice you can share with our prospective dental students of color on what they may expect in dental school, or how to kind of rebound from situations where they feel like there's not a sense of belonging because there's so few of them within the class? Can you share a little bit about that in your experience?
Yeah, definitely. So going through just like higher education in general, as that level of education rises, the level of diversity it decreases. And sometimes like going from undergraduate to dental school, the amount of the magnitude of that change is very, very large in terms of diversity. So there's a lot of things like with like microaggressions and things of that sort that come with the territory of being in spaces that aren't very diverse, or people who have a good amount of like exposure to the nuances of interacting with people of diverse backgrounds. So there is a lot that comes with that, but that's just the territory of being in a space of higher education in the first place. But something that like at first it was a little bit tough on me being able to come to terms with that, seeing it come from like a few layers of like a few layers of where diversity wasn't necessarily at the forefront of people's minds, seeing within like the student layer of things and the faculty layer of things and the institutional layer of things. And so it was very difficult for me to grasp and like stomach that at the beginning. But something that really helped me be able to, and it was one of the dental students now, Iman, we were just talking about it the other day with some other people, was when you're able to use that and be able to not shape your goals around it, but use it as motivation towards things that you're passionate about. So if you see that there's something wrong within your dental school, being able to put forth efforts to change that for the people who have to come behind you. And so it was really awesome to be able to be in the position and have the infrastructure and support by people like Dr. Hewlett and the community of the students to be able to have the opportunity to do things to help contribute to change within those environments. And especially with UCLA, it's particularly cool because there's infrastructure within the dental school and within the larger university to make those kind of changes a lot more tangible and a lot more feasible. So being able to engage in things that are going to create a better environment for not only yourself, but other people, and being able to leave that legacy of an environment that's more positive and a greatly positive experience is something that I was using as one of my main motivations, especially at the beginning when it was a little bit tough to stomach that lack of diversity. But going through it and seeing all of the things that have happened from it, it's been something that's been a really good experience to have. And not that I would have wanted to have experienced that, but the things that I've grown personally and the things that have come through the dental school because of all the things that our community has put together and the village has put together it's really I cherish in seeing that, and I love to see that it's being carried through throughout the years.
That is great. I'm so glad you shared that. And you know what? Yeah, as much as I love having the conversation, I really want to hear from our mentees. I see Amani has her hand up. This is a huddle. The huddle, right? This is where we get those secret plays, the game plan, because they can see us do the play when we're out there on the field and how we're successful. But there's a lot that goes on in that huddle behind the scenes and figuring out. So Imani, go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
Okay, so basically I have a few questions, but I'll try to see if I can like sum it up in one big thing.
That time.
Um, so you're the founder of Diversity in Dentistry. So what I wanted to ask, do I call him Dr. Sampson or Mr. Sampson?
Not yet, not yet, not yet.
Not yet? Okay. So
you guys, you have no finals.
okay, so Mr. Sampson, so when I think of UCLA, I honestly think of like predominantly, like a predominantly white school. Is there a lot of diversity there? And also from all the schools you got accepted to, if you got accepted to more schools, would you want to go back and go to those schools that possibly could have more diversity? Or do you think that like UCLA was the right move for you and you don't regret it at all?
So speaking to like how the demographics of UCLA is comprised, it's weird because it's technically a PWI, but within the dental school, it's very diverse. It's very multicultural, people from a whole bunch of different countries. In terms of like white students, we don't have that many throughout the whole school. It's mostly people from like Asian backgrounds, Middle Eastern backgrounds, and things of that nature. So it's very diverse, and you get a lot of exposure to different cultures in that instance. Where it lacks is people being exposed to the experiences of the Black and brown students, where things get a little bit muddy. But in terms of the traditional PWI experience, it's a little bit different at UCLA as compared to other schools who have a largely like white constituency of students. And so that made the experience a little bit different. And I guess when it comes to the intersectionality of people's experiences, a lot of people are a lot more willing and able to be able to navigate those nuances of people's experiences. And so it's good that since people have these identities that could possibly have those intersections of oppression, people are a lot more open to hearing these conversations and having those conversations. And that's one thing I do really appreciate about UCLA is that since it is very diverse, it makes it a lot easier for these conversations to be had because these identities they're not foreign. These ideas are not foreign to people's identities since they all have to encounter it in one way or another. So that part is really cool about UCLA, and I will give it that. In terms of having to redo this process, UCLA, I at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is a little tough. I don't know if I could do this, especially with the academic strain. But going through the whole process, like now in my fourth year, I'm able to kind of zoom back. We don't have a bunch of classes. We're just focused on patient care and then doing the whole application process for residency. Seeing that, like when we first got there on our interview, they were telling us about the certain type of student that you become coming to UCLA, especially with how it's very strenuous and it's a very, very tough environment to be in academically. And so the type of providers that they say that we're going to be, the type of knowledge that they say that we're going to possess, and the places that we're going to be able to enter, the rooms that we're going to be in, it's crazy to see that those things that they described early on were things that are directly correlated to how everybody is right now. Like we're all those providers with the amount of knowledge that they said we're going to have. We're in the spaces and fulfilling the goals that we have. And so there's been a lot of different checkpoints that have made it very apparent that this was a good decision for me. Like for instance, when I took my board exams, we have so many didactic classes. It's just insane about the depth of all of our classes that we have. And then when it goes into taking the board exams, I was like, this was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be, just because of how in depth that education was. Or the education is. And so having those little checkpoints where you recognize that the struggles that we've gone through it's not for nothing. It bears fruit, and having those checkpoints be where the fruit is places where it's very important to be. And so that's part has been really awesome to see, and going through it and then matching the residency and seeing all of my friends match to residency. It's really awesome to see how the things that they said were going to happen have happened for the most part. And they really do set us up to be able to do these things. Like with every dental school, there's tough things that come along with it. Like unfortunately at UCLA, it tends to happen. Students get a little bit jaded due to the intensity of the environment. And so mental health can be something that can be managed a little bit more like closely, but seeing how well the students have turned out and just with myself, how like good of a provider I feel right now and how knowledgeable I feel and things of that nature, I would do this experience all over again. And then that's not even to say the things that are related to the infrastructure of diversity that they've helped cultivate. And so there's a lot, all to all, I'd do this experience. I'd pick UCLA all over again for sure.
Great. That's great. Great question, Imani. Anybody else? Any questions from the group, from the huddle? Well, when you speak of, mental health and self-care, what are you doing to make sure that you're balanced and you have, I try not to use the word work-life balance because it never is a balance, but maybe finding more of that harmony between your work life and school life, and just to make sure that you're staying well overall.
Yeah, one of the really big things, I guess, in addition to just doing the things to take care of mental health in terms of going to therapy and having close friendships and people that you can confide in, people with similar experiences, those are really important in terms of those relationships. But having something that you do as a hobby is crucially important, especially with all of the people. Just some people will finish school and they'll finish their work and then they'll kind of just like twiddle their thumbs and kind of ruminate on what they have to do next. Whereas if you have some sort of outlet that you can have to be able to let out different types of energy. And so for me, I like playing music and different things like playing video games and things of that nature. So having different hobbies to plug yourself in and budget in that space specifically for that for yourself and prioritize that just like you were prioritizing on your Google Calendar that you have to study at this time. So you're going to take care of yourself at certain intervals within the week and making sure that you're making that a priority. That's something that's extremely important. And it's like there's an article that my friend Selena had sent me a little bit ago. It was talking about like different types of self-care. Or different types of rest. And it's saying that there's like spiritual rest and physical rest, emotional rest, like creative rest and things of that. There's different things that you can do to be able to give yourself a more holistic idea of inner peace and inner rest. And so with emotional rest, being able to fulfill yourself with good relationships that you have, and spiritual rest, doing things that you're very passionate about, whether it be community service, outreach, and things of that nature. Like creative rest, having a creative outlet for you to be able to think abstractly and not within the order that you usually are in. And then physical rest, which is just kind of pulling yourself back and then being able to just let your body sit in itself, which is something that I found really important. And then there's another one that's like stimulatory rest, which is you're kind of removing a whole bunch of stimulation that you like normally encounter. So like social media, or you're not going on the Canvas app all of the time, seeing all of the classes you're in, you're not on your Google Calendar. So you're kind of pulling yourself back from a lot of the stimulation as well. So there's many different ways that the article described for you to gain rest. And that's been really, really cool to see how that can be applied and how well that contributes to kind of regaining ourselves in the process of what school can contribute to in terms of burnout.
Oh, that is great. Maybe you can share that with me and we can put it in the show notes there. Because
Definitely.
True. I mean, I've been, like I said, practicing 20 years and I have experienced burnout. And really, when you were talking about do things that bring you joy and giving back, diversity in dentistry mentorships was that. I really feel it saved me because it re-sparked my joy for dentistry because I was sharing it with others, mentoring, and found a purpose again. So that for sure, and find a hobby. I need to do better about my hobby. There's just no time, right? Running a company.
Yeah.
But so I know we're getting onto our time. Want to be respectful of your time too, but you talked about a little bit what brings you joy. I think music is one thing that brings you joy outside of dentistry, or I like to say beyond dentistry. There's so much. But if you could go back and give yourself or up and coming prospective dentist as student of color, what advice would you give them? And then we have a couple of questions before we end out. I see some hands up.
Yeah, so there's the things that I guess I can reflect on what I would have probably told myself is to just be intentional. So this just isn't like manifesting itself in having your schedule be as colorful as possible and making sure it's down to a T, but also making sure that the places that you're placing your energy are things that you legitimately want to place your energy in, because there's no way to burn yourself out faster than doing something on a weekly basis that you don't want to do. So being intentional in the things that you think are going to help build your character, build yourself as a professional, build yourself as a healthcare provider, in addition to doing things that fulfill yourself as a human being, is something that I think people should be really intentional in. And then when it comes to those dental school interviews, when they're asking you about it, the light in your eyes and the ability for you to just have a conversation about it rather than have an answer for the question is something that I think will kind of help out a lot. And one of the greatest things that I think I should have told myself earlier was to be a lot easier on myself. I've had kind of a habit ever since like the ending of high school of being excessively hard on myself and kind of sometimes putting unrealistic expectations on myself. And there will be points where at the beginning I was doing this and you're like, okay, you're getting to the place where you were going. You're getting to the place where you were going, and the thought that you had and the things, the goals that you set, okay, you got there. So let's just keep going with these unrealistic expectations until it gets a little bit too difficult for those things to be achieved in such a short period of time. And so then it starts falling short, and then you start being upset with yourself and you want to just be able to work harder, which is not necessarily what we're supposed to be doing with all of our energy, or a little bit of energy that we have while we're here. So being able to be a lot easier on ourselves, set realistic goals, realistic expectations, and being able to help manage when you're evaluating yourself, making sure you're doing it in a way that's kind. Evaluating yourself in a way that's just as kind as you can be. And so that's been something that I'm still a work in progress. I still find myself in areas where I see that I'm putting a little bit of an unreal expectation on myself. So it's continually a work in progress. So those are the large two things that I would say for people to do.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, especially students of color, where sometimes we're in this, the systems are set up where we're almost having to prove ourselves, and people are second guessing, and there's no sense of belonging sometimes, that we don't celebrate our wins. So I would just add on there to, really acknowledge your wins at each point and celebrate that, not just keep pushing that goalpost a little bit further, like you got that, you achieved it, now going on to the next thing. So I would say start that early, because it just gets worse as you get older.
Definitely. And so one of the things that my therapist had said, I was going through this weird struggle of thinking that if I was taking a break, that I was doing a disservice, because a lot of the things that I was doing, it's like for the people who I care about. So I thought I was doing a disservice to them if I was taking a break or not doing something that I had an idea like, I should do this. And if I wasn't doing it, I felt like I was kind of doing a disservice, regardless of how much energy that I had to be able to put into it. And so the idea that a therapist presented in terms of you need to be able to rest because that contributes to the amount of productivity and positivity that you can put into all the things that you're passionate about. And it's just as much as contributing to the things that you want. Like resting is just as contributory to the success of the things that you want to involve yourself with, just as much as the work that you're putting in. So prioritizing that as something to be a large focal point of how I'm approaching my productivity is something that has been a very, very transformative in how I'm able to navigate different things.
Oh, thanks for sharing, being vulnerable and sharing that, because it can be so helpful for everyone, including myself. So thank you. I want to go to, is it Alana or Elena? You want to come off mute?
Yeah, it's Alana.
Alana, I got it first. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I've talked to a couple of dental students at UCLA, and I've heard how rigorous the didactics are. Would you say that there's a lot of support from faculty or advisors or staff if you are struggling, your D1 year with the course material? I know from undergrad to dental school will be a really big transition from studying techniques and whatnot.
Yeah, so from just a baseline, what's readily available for you, it's kind of just to kind of fend for yourself kind of thing. But however, if you seek extra support, there's that support for you. So if you're not going to say anything and you're just kind of expecting there to be support proximal to you, it's a little bit more difficult. But if you are seeking, if you know that there's an area you're struggling in and you're like, okay, I need help in this area, and you take that to administration, they will help you. They'll help you with it for sure. They give people tutors for the different classes, whether it be our lab classes or our didactic classes. They hire students to be tutors, and they have very, very intentional relationships with people who have expressed that they need extra support in areas. So if you need extra support, there's always ways to be able to ask for it, and you will receive it. There's infrastructures in place for you to receive that. In addition, the amount of students, our classmates are, it's literally the most brilliant people I've ever been around in my life. It's just like, it baffles me how intelligent some of the people in our class are, not just intelligence and being able to regurgitate, but some people, the way they're able to explain things is just ridiculous. Like some people just have the natural ability to teach like it's a TED talk every time they open their mouth. So the student support in that is something that's really helpful as well, because some people you'll be like, oh, we all just learned this, but there's going to be people who already know it and they can teach the whole class that stuff. And so there's support from all angles, especially if you're actively looking for it, which is really cool.
Great. Any other follow-up question to that, Alana?
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And Amanda, hi.
Hi, I'm Amanda Hodge. I'm a junior predental student at Spelman College. And I know UCLA has a really good reputation. So I was just wondering how much of an impact you think the prestige of a student's dental school has on their chances of matching into residency.
Yeah, so beginning, they said that this was a thing. Like during our interviews, they're like, oh no, this will help. And we were all like, okay, you say that, but you have to. And then going on the interview cycle and then seeing how people were like reference the name UCLA and how the faculty were discussing and like almost revered the name. I was like, whoa, I don't even have grades. Like, what are we? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And so that part, like for one, just not having grades, like we had so many people applying to residencies and none of us have grades. Like some people have honors, but a lot of us, like honors is for the top 10%. That's 8 students. So majority of people don't have like the honors designation that would make someone know that you're like a super high achieving student. So it's all the name and your letters of recommendation. So seeing how successful everybody has been in their cycles, and then on the interview trail that I was on, being able to see how the faculty at all of the schools were referencing UCLA and how much they respected the students that come from that institution, I was like, okay, so this is definitely a thing. It is definitely a thing where the name does help for sure. And seeing how people, like I will be sitting next to someone who graduated the top of their class at a school that has grades. I'm like, I'm sitting next to them. And this is something like literally the only difference in comparison from an academic standpoint is the context of the education that I receive and what they know about that. So the name and what they know the students are capable of to be able to matriculate through these years is something that I've seen it carries through a lot for sure. And I've been glad to see that.
Okay, thank you so much.
For sure.
Well, yeah, this has been great. Of course, I knew that time was going to go by so fast. We had a couple other people. I just want to make sure I open the floor to anyone who else has a question. Anyone? But I know you're part of our Facebook community and on Instagram. If there's any questions, I would just encourage anyone to kind of put it out there, and hopefully we can hear from you there. Thank you so much. You know, I always say that our mentees coming up, they will graduate and hopefully come back as a mentor, right?
100%, 100%.
You're already mentoring now, and just being here and sharing this is great. I'm just so proud of you and so excited for you. What legacy do you want to leave? What is your hopes?
It's funny because it's funny you asked that because you're kind of one of the like inspirations behind one of my main goals, which is awesome. It's to doing like a type of mentorship, and like if you just read the diversity in dentistry like mission statement, that's some of the things that I really want to do within like advanced dental education, and like starting with orthodontics, but especially within like advanced dental education, and being able to increase the amount of mentorship, visibility, and access to these types of spaces through mentorship and scholarship and things of that sort. So that's kind of the sort of legacy that I would like to help contribute to, and definitely following the footprints and the blueprint of Dr. Highshaw for sure. That's one of the things that I definitely want to do.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. This reaffirms that I am doing my purpose here, and that just it makes me so hopeful for our future. We know that opportunity is where it's at. We need to just bridge that opportunity gap for all communities, because there's just such a great untapped potential when some students have not even considered dentistry, and that's what we're just trying to do. And then our other tiers, our pre-dental students who we have here who know dentistry is for them, and let's make that path a little bit easier for them and give them the resources and vast network to help them succeed. So with that, thank you again, Dr. Sampson. Sounds great, huh?
5 more months. So.
It's almost there. Blink, it'll be over. But yeah, it's just a reminder here on Beyond the Smile that if we did it, so can you. Thank you, guys. We'll be back every Tuesday, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. Please join us back in the huddle. And if you know anyone who wants to be a special guest, we are looking out through February. So again, thank you so much. You guys have a great night and happy holidays.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Beyond the Smile. If you need a dental mentor, or you would like to be a mentor, or even if you would like to support our mission to strengthen the diversity pathway from middle school to dental school, please visit our website for more information at diversityindentistry.org. Please share this episode, subscribe to our podcast, and together we can raise the next generation of diverse leaders in dentistry. We did it, so can you.